start recording this. So, once more, I am Layman Kingsford, game designer, game publisher, and author. And what we're going to do today is delve a little bit into the fantasy setting RPG, the Living Empires role playing game that is set in my Living Saga creation. And quick rundown on what the setting entails. We did this last time, but recording is gone. This one I am recording, so we'll have it up on YouTube for perpetuity. Uh, so, in this world of living empires, we have six races, species of people. Three that evolved out of primates, so those are the humans, the elves, and the dwarves, and three that evolved out of like a gazelle type ungulate. And those are the goblins, trolls, and ogres. Um, all the people of this world live together. There's two big cities and hundreds, if not thousands, of other enclaves and towns and civilizations. But two big primary cities, because what ties all of this world together is, I'm going to screen share here. If I can, forgive this for a sec, because I think you'll be getting this, is every living creature in this world is marked with one of these signs: wave, tree, flame, star, tone, bone, wind, and stone. Double check to make sure this is what's actually broadcasting. And oh, that looks terrible. Hold on, I can fix this by doing that. There we go. So now that should look better here in a sec. Anyway, so on these signs you can see they're all arranged in a circle, right? Oh, I realized you're going to be seeing every time I flop back to check on that. They're arranged in a circle. Yeah. And there's a relationship. So if you're a wave sign elf, you're going to be, even on a genetic level, sort of genetically opposed to a tone, as in sound, tone sign elf. But that same wave sign elf is going to have culturally and socially everything in common with a wave sign goblin or a wave sign troll or a wave sign dwarf. Right? So it's that relationship between the signs that dictates everything in this world. All right? All plants and animals also have a sign, so wave sign people predominantly eat wave sign food. Something I can do here is take this image, blow it up a little bit so you can see that as we're chatting. So they eat wave sign food, so plants that are wave sign, animals, if you have a good old steak, it comes from a wave sign cow. And this game, the whole game system needs to reflect this relationship. So what I want to talk about today is I'll give a brief overview of how the dice mechanic system works in Living Empires. You can go to my website, cheekydingo.com, and you can even download, as a very rough work in progress, just outline of sort of the basic rules and concepts and things that are going on, so you can peruse that for yourself. There's also a downloadable copy of this character sheet and the cards that come with it. And we'll discuss that stuff maybe a little later in this or in a different broadcast or in 2 weeks. And we're dog sitting a puppy. Just heard her bark in the background. But anyway, so this sign, let me talk about the mechanics of the game first. Another thing I wanted to do with a proprietary role-playing system is I wanted to create a system that roughly, more or less, equally uses our standard. I should have an overhead camera. Maybe I'll do that next time. Standard polyhedral dice, the 6-sider, the 4-sider, the 8, 10, and 12. No D20, because the math skip between a D12 and a D20 is pretty significant. And what we do is roll dice pools. So anytime a character wants to do something, they are going to roll a certain number of dice. Oh, yay. Looks like, I think that's Matthew. I should have put on my glasses. Hiya. I'll type in there. Ooh, does it look like it's locked up? I hope not. It doesn't look like it's broadcast. I don't know. Sorry, looks like technical difficulties. I am not particularly skilled at all this live streaming stuff. So hopefully I'll get the kinks worked out the more we do this. It does look like it's stuck, but I'm presuming maybe you still hear me. I'll refresh this and see what happens. Maybe it's actually going. Maybe it's my computer that's frozen up. Oh, I think it was my computer that was frozen up. Anywho, check back in on that. Okay, so our basic system, dice pools. So characters, as you can see, have 9 attributes. Most of this will seem familiar to those of you familiar with role-playing. There's 3 physical attributes, strength, agility, and endurance, 3 mental attributes of reasoning, awareness, and willpower, and 3 social attributes of presence, manner, and essence. Presence is kind of like charisma in D&D stuff. It's basically how other people perceive you, whereas your manner is sort of how you behave, how you speak, your mannerisms, as it were. And essence is measurement of magical power, because that's one other thing in the setting. Everybody has one of these signs, and everybody has access to magic from that sign. Each of those signs, so like we'll stick with the wave sign elf for the moment. Oh, you know what we should do? We should stick with this character, who is a wind sign human. So wind deals with air magic, can manipulate gaseous substances, move air, obviously. Could remove air from somebody's lungs, send out blasts of wind. Very powerful people could maybe you can conjure up a tornado, or if they're over water, a hurricane, I suppose. Anyway, so we'll stick with this wind sign as our example. So anything character that is wind sign, their opposite is flame sign. So anytime they can't eat flame sign food, it's maybe not quite poisonous, but will make them very, very, very ill. And so the further away on the circle your sign is from a thing you're interacting with, the less beneficial it is, or the more antagonistic maybe it can become. So the system is going to need to involve all of that, or reflect all of that, sorry. And we have these 9 attributes. So designing a dice pool. So let's say this wind-signed character is going to arm wrestle somebody. Now, he's a pretty beefy guy. He's got, I guess, one last thing I should describe is your character has a deck of cards for each, and they're listed here. So he's got 3 strength cards, each of which is a D10. So he's got 3 cards in this deck that represent the strength, and you can either discard the card from your deck to get a D10 to add into your dice pool if you're dealing with a strength thing. So let's go with this arm wrestling example. Or you could discard a card. There's abilities on them too, and they have room for advancements you can write in, or maybe we'll have stickers for them. But a normal strength card allows you to discard this and upgrade one of the dice in your pool, make it 1 size bigger, so it could turn a D6 into a D8, for example. But we've got this arm wrestling thing going on. So this character will discard 1. You always have to include 1 attribute card. You can include more if you want, but this is part of where we need your help and input and insight. Is right now I'm working on the basis that you have to, of course, discard 1 attribute. That's the thing that triggers your dice pool, or activates your dice pool. And in this case, it would be a D10. So we get handy D10, right? And then they also have skills. So anytime you're trying to do anything, you automatically, as just a baseline skill thing, you get three four-sided dice, 3d4s. I keep looking the wrong way or moving my hand the wrong way in the camera. D4s are really hard to pick up. So I've got 3 D4s and a D10 for this arm wrestling, if I don't have a particular skill that's relevant to that. Now, he happens to be skilled in unarmed fighting, so it turns those 3 D4s into a D12, a D10, and a D8. So that would be his basic dice pool, because I think we could argue that the unarmed fighting skill might be applicable in an arm wrestle, right? Sure. That's again up to the players and the game master to decide for themselves. But we're going to go with that for right now. So we have a dice pool of the D12, a D10, and a D8 from the skills, the D10 from having discarded one strength card. And now let's say he really wants to win this. So I have I can use any of my other 9 physical cards that relate to one of my physical attributes, so the strength, agility, and endurance. Strength cards allow you to upgrade a die. The base agility cards allow you to re-roll a die after you've rolled them, so you can discard it at any time. Endurance allow you to give +1 or -1. There are times when you might want to lower a dice result to a roll. Now this one is an upgraded endurance cards. Not only is it a D12 and it lets you add or subtract +1 or -1 to a die roll, but it also has a re-roll value on it too. Now those can only be applied to physical things. So if you're doing a mental or social activity, those cards would not be usable for their effects. Now, one other thing you can always do is, what if I'd already spent, I got in the game, in the scenario, I'd already spent all of my strength cards and I had to do this arm wrestle. My character had to do this arm wrestle and I had spent all my strength cards. Well, you can discard any 2 other cards. Doesn't matter whether they're physical, social, or mental, but discard any other 2 cards and get a die. Here we go. Something I normally would say a D4, but I would think in this case he's got 3 D10s. All his strength cards are D10s. So I would say I could discard any 2 cards from my deck. This deck also sort of represents your hit points, your stamina. When you've gone through all of your deck, you're going to have to rest, and you get a certain amount. Depending on how much you rest and how well you rest, you'll get cards back into your deck. You'll also have to, if you've played Gloomhaven, you'll be familiar with this, permanently for the game session, or until you do a very long rest. Permanently remove 1 card from your discard pile, and then all the rest would go back into your deck. So you kind of refresh it, but you're just constantly being fatigued to the point where at some point you're going, you know what? I need a vacation. I need to take a couple days off, get all my cards back. Anyway, back to the topic, the thought at hand. I'm going to check the conversation. This arm wrestling. If I had no strength cards to discard, that would be okay, because I could discard any other 2 cards and get. I think you discussed this with your game master, but maybe your lowest value strength card. Discard 3 cards, get your highest value. I don't know. These are all little rules and tweaks that I could certainly use input from you all on. And you can always, if you have thoughts or ideas, because if you've missed this live stream or missed the chat, you can always go onto the RPG hashtag or thread on the Tabletop Gamers Discord channel. I shouldn't clap. Discord channel. And throw your comments in there. I keep an eye on that all the time, and we'll chime in with anybody that has questions or thoughts or ideas. So find us there on the RPG thread on the Tabletop Gamers Discord channel. Once again, back to arm wrestling. So I've got a D12, 2 D10s, and a D8. He's arm wrestling against big old ogre dude, right? Because they've a flame sign ogre. All right, so as we saw here earlier, you can see wind and flame sign oppose each other. So what this will be a contested roll because my dice will be rolling against the ogre's dice. I'm just, for simplicity's sake, right now I'm going to give him her, make him characters, give her 4d12, right, against my d12, d10, d10, and d8. Ooh. All right. So my dice will be rolling against theirs. So in this game, the base mechanism is you get a pool of dice. Any dice that rolls higher than a 4, each one of those dice counts as a success. Now, this is all determined by the game master. Says, all right, if you need to kick open this door, you need 2 successes. Maybe you'll need 1 success because it's a standard door. Maybe it's an extra sturdy door. You need 2 successes. But in this arm wrestling case, I just need to accumulate more successes than my opponent. So I will roll all 4 of my dice. Again, this is why I should have an overhead camera, which I will do in the future. So I rolled a 10 on the d12, an 8, an 8 and a 1 on my d10s, and a 3 on the d8. So it'll be so much, pictures worth 1,000 words. I can tell you all this. Wait, what did he say was on the, yeah. Anyway, so these 4 d12s rolled a 7, a 6, a 3, and a 2. Ooh. So what we will do is compare our dice. So my d12 had a 10, had a d10 against, what did I say? I think that, I messed up already. 7. Yeah, it was a 7. So my 10 versus their 7, my highest roll against their highest roll. So I have 1 success. Right? But they also have a success because they rolled higher. But my success was greater because the 10 beats the 7. Then my 8 against their 6, my d10 that rolled an 8 against their d12 that rolled a 6. I beat out that 6. My 3 on the d8 ties their 3, so those cancel each other out. And then my 1 on a d10 against their 2 ones. So I have 2 successes, 2 dice that beat out theirs. They have 1 that beat out mine. So I ended up with a net gain of 1 success. All these can be measured by the amount of the success if the game master feels it's appropriate in the moment. If you want to be super simple, I don't know how it gets any simpler than that, but it could be, maybe. But anyway, so this is a contested dice roll, so it's dice versus dice. Unlike the aforementioned other example of kicking down a door. Say it's an extra sturdy door. This guy comes along, same dice pool. I got a 10, an 8, a 3, and a 1. And the game master said, I need at least 2 successes to kick this door in. And I got a 10, an 8, a 3, and a 1. So the 3 and the 1s were not successes because they were not 4s. But the 8 and the 10 were, so I got exactly 2 successes. 1. Now that door is neutral. Doesn't really matter. Going back to the arm wrestling deal, where now it's contested, dice versus dice, and the character's signs need to have some sort of impact. Now the thing is here, I've pitted them as exact opposite signs, the most antagonistic way to do it, wind versus flame. Which, as now I'm looking at it, their benefits cancel each other out because for me, I would get it normally, if it were against a static thing, DG stands for dice grade. It's the terminology I use for the size of the dice size, if you will. So what I need your help on is figuring out how we implement a system where the character's signs are relevant to their dice rolls. Sometimes when it's against static things, if it were a flame sign door, maybe sign would matter a little bit there. That wood, even though it's dead, is made out of some flame sign trees. So that means it would be extra resistant against me as a wind sign person. Interesting. So in that case, my little graphic here shows -2 dice grades anytime a wind sign character goes against something flame sign. But when it's character against character, It just sort of naturally cancels each other out, right? Let me take a drink of tequila. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. If there was somebody here live that had thoughts, that would be cool. Looks like mine's frozen up again. But we don't. So, no one's in the Discord channel either. Don't think. Nope. Let's cancel that out. So I don't know. Let me think out loud. If my dice need to be negatively impacted, my wind sign dice need to be negatively impacted by going up against flame sign dice, but likewise their dice will be negatively impacted. Again, it would be a wash. So that's an interesting mathematical conundrum, right? In the contested dice rolls in this system. I immediately don't have an answer. They said when you're not rolling against dice but just looking for straight up successes, it's very easy. I penalize my dice, my wind sign dice, because I'm doing something against a flame sign deal. And how do you? And now here's another thing when it comes to game design. Now it would be perfectly permissible for us to come up with a whole other methodology to determine that when it's contested dice. But what I'm also going for here is creating a system that's as simple and easy as possible to understand, so we don't have there's not an exception to everything, that everything works kind of the same way, frees up the players and the game master to tell stories, be their characters, but get a lot more dice rolling involved to determine things are going, which is one of my sort of pet peeves, and I said this last time about games like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, because they're combat oriented, and that's what they're designed for. But I certainly know me and my friends tend to like to make characters that are socially interactive, and you only have a couple skills and feats, a mere pittance of choices of how to manufacture your character if they're socially based. It's certainly better in like D&D 5th edition and the new Pathfinder and stuff, but it's all still based upon killing monsters, taking their stuff. So you have volumes full of combat stuff, and then you can get a +1 or a -1 on a diplomacy roll or an intimidation roll. So just a couple skills, and it's never felt. I wanted a game that is. I want to design a game that's as robust in its social interactions as it is in its physical interactions. And so hence that's the reason we've got the 3 sets of different types of attributes: mental, physical, and social. If too many of your physical cards get discarded or worn out, you become fatigued. If you lose too many of your mental cards or all of your mental cards, you become stressed out. If you lose too many of your social cards in a given situation, you are stigmatized by the group. Maybe you're thrown out of the party because you've been too crass. You've gained too much stigma. And that's what we have here at the bottom here, is that because your player sheet also operates as sort of as your character board. So it's got a little bit of a board gamery feel in some regards as you play along, because you're managing this deck of cards. But unlike a board game, with role-playing games, it's open-ended and you're free to make choices to do whatever you want. And want a system that's not limited by, I don't have a skill for that, or I don't have a rule that covers that. If you're doing something mental, if you're thinking, it's a reasoning roll. If you don't have a reasoning card, discard 2 other cards to get a reasoning die. And same thing with social. You're trying to convince the bartender to give you a round of free drinks because you saved the town. That would probably be a manner roll, not presence, but manner. Again, maybe you'd say, no, I'm really doing it using my presence. And again, converse with your game master. Maybe they'll allow it. Maybe they'll tell you heck no. Uh, but I want a system that mechanically is just as robust socially as it is physically, and also wanted to have more dice rolling because again, when it comes to the combat oriented games, sure you might list out social skills like intimidate and diplomacy, that sort of stuff. But you do one dice roll and it's kind of done and over with. Whereas combat, you get a whole bunch of dice rolls because you got this swing and that swing. Same thing in a debate. You make a point, somebody makes a counterpoint, and you discuss back and forth. This could easily be represented with the exact same dice system as you use for physical combat. Hence part of what I'm trying to do with this. So, what we are working on today is this mechanism and how to make the signs relevant to contested dice rolls, but not come up with a whole other rule system that's different from non-contested dice rolls. So the straight up, your dice need successes of 4 or higher, and you need 1 or more of them to get it done. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. If you have thoughts, again, please sound off on the Tabletop Gamers Twitch channel, or no, this is Twitch, Discord channel, the RPG thread. I call it hashtag RPG, because I'm old. So that's just kind of what I wanted to cover today about peeking under the pages of game design. So things to keep in mind. So what we're wanting to do is keep it simple. So this one, you keep to one methodology so you don't have a whole bunch of exceptions to rules, which when it comes to publishing, in print or otherwise, that's a whole bunch of extra pages, and people have to, oh wait, this is the one time when you dice don't count, or so we want one unified system. And where I've come across a stumbling block is how do we represent in the dice rolls the fact that my dice need to be penalized against opposing dice the further away they are. If I were a win sign, again, I guess it works the same way. If this character were doing that same arm wrestling example with another win sign character, I suppose maybe that I don't know. I suppose maybe it's okay still, because maybe it depends on. So let's go back to this wind sign human arm wrestling a flame sign ogre. We're both getting -2 dice grades, which means, and normally it starts with your. Well, that's another question. Do you think that penalty, if 2 of my dice have to be lowered, knocked down one size, and you can't drop d4s down below a d4, what is there a rule? Do I get to choose which ones as the player, or is there a mechanism in place that says it's always starting with your highest dice, or starting with your lowest dice? I don't know. That's another question for you. So question 1, the big one, is how do we implement a system to reflect the sign relationships? Number 2, does that rule, should that apply to when there's a penalty or a bonus? I guess when it's a bonus, I guess as a player, I'd want to choose, like if I were this arm wrestling example, what if that ogre was wind sign? So 2 wind sign characters arm wrestling, I get to upgrade 2 of my dice. Again, not beyond a d12, though I am tinkering with an idea that if you go above a d12, you'd add another die, a brand new d4 to the pool. That's a thought as well. Because as we said earlier, there's no d20s. We don't bump from a d12 to a d20. That's a big math skip. So question number 2 then is, do I, the player, get to decide which dice get bonused or penalized? Or does the game system determine that? Meaning, starting from your largest dice or starting from your smallest dice? giving agency to players, giving them the choice, is always the better way to go. Because the less we feel, though some people like to be told exactly what can and can't happen, they like um, the rigidity sounds negative, but I don't mean it that way. They like the rigidity, the clarity of a very defined system. Others, much more like myself, going, you know what, whatever. But I like defaulting to giving player the more choices a player has, the more agency they feel in playing the game, in their control of the game, and especially in a role-playing game, then the more agency they feel in how they determine their characters behaving. So I guess maybe right now I am voting. We need your thoughts and opinions. I'm voting on choosing which dice get the bonuses and which get the penalties. Knowing you don't eliminate a dice, so D4s cannot get any smaller than a D4, and for now, D12s can't get bigger than a D12. So that bears in mind. That then feels, if we were playing this Flame Ogre, in my example, that has this, it is for random reasons, has all 4 of their dice in their dice pool are D12s. But if I were supposed to be getting +2 dice grades, upgrading 2 dice in this example, that doesn't feel very good. Like, oh, I've got this bonus, but I don't have anything to use it on because I'm maxed out. I've got all D12s. So there we go. That makes me think a little bit. Well, maybe then those upgrades do toss in new D4s. I don't know. Or 2 upgrades, maybe you wouldn't get 2 dice. You just get to upgrade twice, maybe that new D4. Because again, having more dice, if a dice pool in the example right now is currently in the method right now is currently limited to 4 dice under all normal circumstances. This being an abnormal circumstance. Does that make sense? I have 4 D12s, but by the rules are permitting me to have 2 upgrades. Going from 4 to 6 dice, again, huge step up in math. That seems mathematically unbalanced. Adding 1 more die into the dice pool, not as bad. So if I have 2 upgrades, so I add in a die 4 and then upgrade it again, so a D6. So in my example of Ogre with 4 D12s, I'd have 4 D12s, upgrade, and bring in a new die for the D4, and the second upgrade changes that D4 into a D6. So I'd have 4 D12s and a D6. It's better than all of a sudden having 6 dice in my dice pool rather than 4 or 5. Oh, so leave my thoughts to ponder that and leave you to ponder that and sound off in Discord as to that. But that's what I wanted to cover today, was give you a little peek at least this is hardly a universal thought process. This is my thought process and how I work through this sort of stuff. But this is the crux of the game, is that your sign relationship to another character, to a situation, to the setting needs to always feel relevant, which means it should more often than not impact your dice in one way or another, either to benefit them or penalize them. So hopefully, I know this has been a little rambly, but it's just giving us the peek. And I will give it that. I'm going to stop recording, so I'll sign off now. I'm Layman Kingsford. You can check in. Check in on the work in progress of just sort of my outlines and the basic thoughts and ideas and concepts for this role-playing game system on my website, cheekydingo.com. I will probably, if this recording isn't too horrible, I'll probably put it up on my YouTube channel. There's a Layman Cheeky Dingo Cheeky Dingo YouTube channel, which you can find it. And maybe if I do that, I'll put those links on my website, cheekydingo.com also. So anyway, thanks for tuning in and listening. And I'll be doing this again in 2 weeks. Thursdays at 5:30 Mountain Time. Every other Thursday, not every Thursday. Because I do have publishing deadlines for my novel, and I've just got to write. But that's what I've got going on. Thank you for your time and attention. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing what it is, how you all feel about this. Your thoughts and opinions, ideas. Out of all this rambling diatribe, what you like, what sounds interesting, what doesn't sound interesting, and why not. Those are all things I'd like to hear. And we'll chat with you later. Cheers.